I am the parent of 3 kids, 1 adopted. I did teach parenting classes in my church for 15 years to 700 families, and I was in youth ministry for 30 years, seeing the effect of various styles of parenting. What was the outcome of those? And I rolled all that together into the parenting classes, and the great thing about it was that I could put out some techniques and get feedback, and people would say, this is how it's working, this is how it's happening in our family. So I'm very confident in the material, and people kept saying, you ought to write a book, you ought to write a book. and after writing books on Christian living, I did 3 books on Christian living, I finally wrote the parenting book, and that's what this one is. But towards the end of that stint of 15 years, I started noticing how hard it is for parents to stay on the same page, and how much friction it can cause in a family when they're not consistently working together. And fewer people work together than you would think. So I came up with this idea of Unison parenting. And even though the book is 80 to 90% just great parenting advice, in fact, it won a secular competition because it's just great parenting advice, there's this underpinning of Unison parenting, how to get on the same page, stay on the same page, and get back on track when you inevitably lose the mission for a little while. So that goes through every chapter of the book, is what is the Unison parenting foundation for this parenting advice, and then here's some things you need to know. Here's the pitfalls where you can get off track.
What did you observe specifically with respect to parenting styles? You mentioned parenting styles, and perhaps even different parents, a married couple who are parenting kids, they will bring in different parenting styles into the marriage, because I would say that most parents learn their parenting styles from their parents.
Absolutely.
And so they've got to get on the same page. But I want to explore that with you. But first of all, what did you observe as far as maybe some of the specific types of parenting styles that manifested themselves through the kids?
Yeah. So when I was a parent, I was learning some too. I started trying to parent instinctively, which I think is a mistake. So I went and I read some parenting books, and I came across a model that was originated by Diana Baumerind back in the 60s, and other people have evolved it from there. And it has 4 styles. If you can imagine a quadrant system, and on one axis is love, and on another axis is limits. So if you're low on love but high on limits, that's a dominant parent. If you're high on love but low on limits that you put on the kids, that's a permissive parent. If you're low on both, you're a neglectful parent. If you're high on love but also high on limits and boundaries, you're a loving and firm parent, and that's the ideal style. So I got to where I could look at kids who are teens and almost figure out what type of parenting they had had. Now, what you point out is we do kind of inherit parenting instinctively. It's built into our subconscious, and we do one of 2 things typically. We will either parent just like our parents, or we will parent the opposite of our parents, and neither may be correct. In fact, what you see the most is the alternation between the dominant and the permissive that are on opposite ends. And that plays out sometimes. You talk about people coming together. Maybe one came out of a strict household, another came out of a lenient household, and they want to parent in that style, and they get into what I call opposition parenting. One will lean strict, the other will lean farther lenient to make up. They're trying to pull it back to the center, but that doesn't work because the strict parent leans harder the other way, the lenient leans harder, and now you've got a mess because you have no consensus on how to parent. The kid either plays them or is just completely confused about what are the rules of this household.